I'm starting as a level 1 in the most horrifying post-apocalyptic world full of mutated beings. I have to face cosmic horrors and SCP-like creatures, from Siren Heads to unspeakable monsters. I'll need to gather food, resources, build a base, and craft equipment to be able to survive. My objective is to defeat the Great One Trent within the next 50 hours in an attempt to save the world. This video is sponsored by Once Human, but I genuinely had a great time playing this. Before this video, I already played tons of hours in the base game scenario. This one is called The Way of Winter, where you have to survive the freezing cold, but in 2025 there will be multiple new scenarios. One is called Code Broken, which is gonna be similar to the game Rust, with unrestricted PvP. Another one will be Code Deviation, featuring popular deviation pet friends. Download the game for free using my link below and try to survive The Way of Winter. I began this journey in some sort of laboratory. Something indescribable happened. I realized that I had something impaled in my chest. I pulled it out. I stumbled out of a laboratory medical pod. The lab was a disaster. I searched through an emergency bag. There was some canned food and boiled water. I took care of my thirst and hunger. All of the researchers' bones were broken, no signs of life. I approached a desk with some documents detailing Trent's origin. It was a monstrous plant deviation that originated from a human body. I also found a code. It was for the passcode lock on the door. Another dead researcher. I took an access card from his body and used it to unlock the door. A bird appeared. It told me I was a meta-human. Apparently, I had lost my memory. This place was called a monolith. Rosetta was an organization that used this place to secure deviations and perform experiments on them.
You can call me V.
A portal opened in front of me. I stepped through it, found a weapon crate with a machete and some boiled water. I made my way down the hallway and saw something. I managed to kill it. V told me that it was a life form infected with something called stardust.
It's called a deviant.
If humans take high levels of it, they end up like that thing. But as a metahuman, I should be safe. As I looked around, I saw something strange, the after-image of a woman. I was transported to this new place. Turrets were set up for defense. I went inside.
V, you made it back.
She knew V and thanked me for freeing him from the cradle. Mitsuko used to be a meta-human herself. Rosetta did all kinds of experiments on her.
Rosetta triggered a major stardust fluctuation during one of their experiments. As a result, some great ones slipped through, entering into our world.
Trent was one of them. By consuming others, it could grow to an immense and terrifying size.
Be careful! That must be a siren!
After defeating the Siren Head, someone appeared. He was the leader and founder of the Vultures.
My name's Ignace Sinclair.
He threatened to obliterate everything if we didn't go to the frozen wasteland to confront him in his real form.
We'll crush any survivors.
It was time to begin. I had several starting points to choose from. I opted for the second one, specifically to Camp Igloo. I suddenly was teleported to the snowland. V helped me glide through the air. I hadn't realized my stamina was draining. I started free-falling to the ground, but managed to grab onto V just in time before landing. Almost immediately, I spotted a polar bear nearby. Curious, I approached to see if it was friendly. It wasn't. After dealing with that, I summoned V to discuss our next steps.
The temperature here? It's dangerously low. You'll need to keep yourself warm.
Building fires, cooking warm food, and crafting insulated gear will be essential. First up, I needed to set up camp. I headed towards the trees and started chopping. Then, mined a rock for some gravel. Once camp was ready, I crafted a torch at the bench to help maintain my warmth. Next on the list was food. V saw some plants nearby that I could eat. I collected spiked tomatoes and sunny ginger. Along the way, I found an abandoned vehicle with a storage crate full of materials, alongside some car trunks with resources. Once I gathered enough herbs, it was time to prepare some winter gear. For that, I need reindeer hides. After a successful hunt, I noticed the temperature was dropping fast, night was falling, and hypothermia was setting in. I crafted a jacket and some pants. Then, I summoned V again.
What do you plan to do next?
We decided to search for any people nearby. If there were other survivors out there, we could get some information and support from them.
Before we landed, I could see a manned outpost over in the distance.
After a quick meal and drink, I set off toward the outpost, loading cars along the way. I came across another place, heavily guarded, yet not hostile. The guards didn't attack me. A sign read Ice Cube Neutrino Research Hub. Suddenly, I even saw another survivor, spawning a motorcycle and riding off. Going up some stairs, I found a place with a few merchants. I spoke with Anne, the head of this research station, who was studying the extreme climate. She explained how the vultures were using machines to worsen the extreme weather. These creations were called Chaos Weavers. Apparently, they roamed the snowfields. Also, I asked more about Trent. She explained that the Great One was the result of one of the most horrifying consequences of stardust contamination. Pregnant woman consuming contaminated plants infected her fetus. In the body of the Trent, the stardust binded 3 lives together: the mother, the baby, and the plant. I needed to end their suffering for good. Nearby, I talked to a man called Samuel Lowe. He was a specialist in deviations. He gave me one called Digby Boy, who was able to dig resources for me. It will come in handy once I set up my own territory. I also unlocked the teleportation tower at this station, enabling fast travel here for the future. Resuming my journey to the outpost V mentioned, I left the research station. I had to make a careful jump across some cold water, then continued along the road, noticing a huge tree looming on the horizon. Crafting a motorcycle soon will be wise. After some more walking, I finally reached the outpost.
Are you a friend or foe?
Heading inside, I talked with the leader. She was Maisley Torres, commander of this recon detachment. They were soldiers of a group called the Column. I mentioned my mission to take down the leader of the Vultures. Maisley wanted to put me to the test. I needed to find someone called Wendy. She will give me some work. Before setting out, I needed to set up my own home base. I began laying the foundations. I set up the furnace, producing charcoal from logs and then smelting copper ore into ingots. I then remembered the Digby Boy I got. I put it in the securement unit. Straight away, the deviation started roaming around, looking for materials. Quite a sight to see. Additionally, setting up my territory granted me access to spawn my own motorcycle. Once the ingots were ready, I used them to build a disassembly bench, where I converted all the scrap I'd gathered into valuable materials. With preparations complete, I rode my motorcycle back to Camp Igloo and located Wendy.
I'm Wendy, Director of Logistics.
I asked if there was any work available, and she mentioned an urgent task that needed handling. It involved the Union, a group of survivors in East Nalcott. They recently agreed to trade with her and sent a convoy packed with resources, but communication was lost, and the convoy's last known location was a deviant-infested town called Mouseville. If I managed to track down the convoy, Wendy promised me a cut of the supplies as a reward. After this, I told Samuel Lowe that the Digby Boy was safe in my territory, completing another task. Lastly, I summoned V. Turns out there were commissions to complete to earn rewards. Each week, there was a new set. Completing each one gave more rewards. I chose 5 of them, completing the main objective. I had to gather some copper, so I checked on the Digby Boy deviation, who had managed to mine some sulfur while I was away. With materials ready, I crafted 1 workbench, then chopped trees for arrows and charcoal. After setting up the second workbench, I was finally ready to start crafting. I managed to make some new gloves, but I didn't have any more materials for a firearm just yet, so I settled for a baseball bat for the moment and headed out to look for resources. There were some points of interest nearby, maybe worth checking out, but I could also go straight to the mission location Wendy gave me. It was higher level, but I was up for a challenge. I got on my bike and headed there. Then, suddenly, I saw it. A bus with giant legs. A huge deviation. It was terrifying. I followed it with my motorcycle. Stayed close. I even tried shooting at it, but it didn't react. Then, it stopped. I made a run for it and tried to get inside. I found the chest with some loot. After getting out, I realized it unleashed a wave of high-level deviants, much stronger than me, transporting them like passengers. I tried fighting, but I didn't stand a chance. I got on my bike and escaped. Shortly after, another anomaly caught my eye. I can't even begin to describe it. I took a closer look. As I approached, a thick fog surrounded me. There was a Gatling gun on the ground. I grabbed it and started shooting blindly, taking down a giant monster. After this, a chest appeared next to me. I looted the rewards. One of them was a deviation, a mini feaster. We'll check it out later. Back on my motorcycle, I continued onward. I reached the area. I saw a massive deviant crawling out from a rift in the sky. I tried firing at it, but my bullets barely scratched it, while its minions dealt punishing blows. As the giant stomped, an airwave hit me hard. Its weak spots were on its knees, strange growths that seemed vulnerable. I aimed for them, causing the creature to stumble, but in the end, I was overwhelmed. I wasn't strong enough. I needed better equipment and a higher level to stand a chance against it. Respawning at my base, I decided to scout the nearby points of interest of easier difficulty first. I went to a place called Pine Hunting Ground. Once there, I saw a deviant hovering in the air. I took it down silently, then continued sniping down enemies with my crossbow, grabbing any useful loot. Inside, I faced an explosive spider monster and avoided its blasts. The baseball bat worked wonders for close quarters, allowing me to take down a few more deviants and gather loot. I continued scavenging and shooting more of them down until I leveled up. One of the mutants that I took down had a spotlight for a head. I used it with telekinesis to burn the rest of them. Returning to camp with the new materials, I disassembled the scrap and crafted a sniper rifle, giving me the firepower I needed. After unlocking the mimetic for ammunition, I made a few hundred bullets, bringing me up to level 8. Finally, I also made some more healing items. After activating the teleportation tower near Mouseville, I set up a small camp for a safe respawn point. As I scouted the area, I came across a strange floating balloon. Shooting it a few times rewarded me with some loot, including a reflex sight and other materials. At Mouseville, the atmosphere was unsettling. Deviants with balloons instead of heads wandered the area, accompanied by 2 gluttons, smaller than the one that defeated me before. But I needed to be careful. I took down the minions first, silently, one by one. The first glutton eventually fell, but that was only the beginning. The remaining minions and the second giant came at me relentlessly. It was surprisingly tough to beat, but they all finally went down. And then it happened again. I began shooting at it. Surprisingly, it went down quickly. I thought something went wrong, but it turns out another player was there and dealt the final blow. He had some sort of wolf deviation as a companion. Close by, there were some ugly deviants that I had to face. We fought together against them. Spiders were coming at us non-stop. These were unexpectedly high level for this location. I activated the rift anchor, loaded the crates, and got out of there. But I still needed to find that missing convoy. It was time to look for it. Continuing my search, I scavenged more crates while evading another massive monster. Sneaking past it, I hold my breath at every sound it made. As I moved further, I looted some more crates, and then came across a man on the roof.
We're really lucky you're here.
The vultures are approaching!
Thanks for coming and helping us out.
With all that done, I spoke to V to organize our next move.
Let's go find the right column members.
Before going back to Camp Igloo, I saw there was a nearby silo with a quest marker. I decided to check it out. At the entrance, there was a man with a TV for a head.
Ah, my favorite mayfly. I have quite the interesting bounty for you, if you're interested.
He gave me a bounty to hunt the vulture leader.
What hasn't this vulture done, you mean?
I had to get inside the silo and take him down. This location had become an independent vulture stronghold, cut off from Ignar's control. It was time to infiltrate the den. The subway had a flame trap at the entrance. Carefully, I avoided it and tried taking the vulture silently, but I was detected. All hell broke loose. I used my sniper from the elevated position, holding my ground while the vultures rushed up to me. I took some heavy hits, but relied on some quick activators to heal me and keep going. The fight went on until their elite unit arrived. It was a huge soldier with a massive shield. My shots barely scratched him. I kept getting hit more and more. With no healing items left, I kept shooting at his feet, chipping away his health, until finally he went down. As his body collapsed, he dropped the key. This was only the beginning. I looted the area before heading any further. The hallway ahead was rigged with more flame traps. There was a guard at the end of it. I took him down. Navigating through the flames was tricky. I got burned but managed to push through. Opening a nearby chest revealed some tier 2 pants, great upgrade from what I had. I also remembered the shotgun I looted earlier and equipped it as a secondary weapon. The next section had even more flame traps and had just one activator left for healing. Pressing on, I mowed down more vultures. In one room, I stumbled upon one of the tall deviants, trapped like a trophy. Going further, I noticed some fluctuations. An anomaly was nearby. I approached the drum kit, and suddenly, a boss fight. It was brutal. He dealt a lot of damage, taking big chunks of my health. At one point, I even ran out of shotgun ammo, making each bullet count. I tried to aim for his head with my sniper. After a tough fight, I managed to take him down and captured the deviation. Also got a lot of weapon mods and a new tier 2 shotgun. I reported back to T-Man.
Here's the bounty for Colin Langan.
I then went back to my camp. I needed to craft a lot more ammo, so I mined tons of copper and smelted it into ingots. While waiting, I decided to expand my base, unlocking several new memetics for construction. I harvested a ton of logs and started building walls and the roof. After tons of chopping and crafting, I finally finished enclosing my base. By then, the ingots were ready. This completed the last of the 5 commissions I had taken on. I needed to construct more securement units, but I needed glass. I smelted some gravel in the furnace. After claiming my rewards for the commissions, I selected another 5 from the next set. With that done, I grabbed the glass and set up another deviation. I chose the Mini Feaster, which had the ability to mark enemies and summon tentacles that dealt damage. Next, I crafted a large supply of sniper and shotgun ammo. I also unlocked the solar generator memetic and began setting up lights around my camp. However, I didn't have enough glass for the windows, so I gathered more gravel. After setting up the windows, I collected dirty water from a nearby lake and unlocked the stove memetic to boil it. Once I had eaten and hydrated, I resumed the main quest by heading to Camp Igloo. There, I spoke with Wendy about Fort Obsidian. She revealed that the vultures were preparing for an assault, gathering materials and forces at their stronghold. But there was an opportunity. This could be the perfect chance to capture Igna. I bought some healing activators and headed towards the fort. As I ventured deeper into the wilderness, the temperature dropped significantly. Hypothermia began to set in. My confidence turned against me. After activating a teleportation tower nearby, the cold overwhelmed me. Back at my camp, I knew I needed better preparation for the harsh conditions. I unlocked the Polar Expedition 1 memetic, allowing me to craft stones to help maintain my body temperature. Additionally, I unlocked the Temperature Control 1 memetic, which let me build a campfire. However, it could only be built within the territory, so I carried a thermium rock in my inventory for warmth on the go. I also unlocked the Copper Pickaxe and Bronze Crafting memetics, enabling me to smelt bronze ingots and craft a tier 2 torch. With this, and some more spicy plants I gathered around, I felt more prepared to endure the cold. Returning to where I had fallen, I set up a small camp to shelter myself from the freezing temperatures. It was time to infiltrate Fort Obsidian. With my torch in hand, I sneaked forward. I spotted a lone vulture huddling by a fire barrel for warmth. Not wanting to draw attention, I circled around, waited for the right moment. and strangled him silently. I then used the same fire barrel to warm myself. Nearby, I noticed a strange, crazy vulture. It spotted me, forcing me to take it down with my sniper. The gunshot alerted the entire camp. Enemies swarmed my position, and I deployed my deviation to summon tentacles from the ground to attack them. After scavenging a house, I kept going forward, eliminating enemies silently whenever possible, until, on the upper floor of another building, I found a member of the vultures called Micah.
Hello there. You've come to join our movement, haven't you?
Faking loyalty, I said yes.
If you want to join us, you'll need to answer a few questions. How should we view Starfall?
I said as a blessing and a miracle.
What is a vulture's first priority when it comes to non-believers?
To bring them into the light.
What have the Great Ones called upon mankind to do?
To serve them loyalty.
Indeed.
My answers satisfied him, and I was officially infiltrated into the vultures. Micah pointed me to the southern mountain, where I could access the fortress entrance. I started going up, while also moving my camp to have a closer respawn point, and kept going. At the entrance of the side, I found 2 guards. Going through the tunnels, it was clear that this fortress was massive. Igna's exact location was unknown. I would have to navigate carefully. I silently took down another guard and looted a chest for supplies. I was in an open area. Stealth will be hard. Nonetheless, I sneaked around the perimeter, avoiding some bear traps on the ground and strangling another guard. Searching the area thoroughly, I went up some stairs and jumped from one platform to the other. Inside one crate, I found a pair of blast pants. I pressed on, climbing higher and higher, until
The column sent you to kill Igna, didn't they? Well, you're out of luck. By the grace of the Great Ones, our leader has already departed.
it was the same boss I had fought back in that strange arena, but now he was different, real. The fight was intense. I was holding my own until I noticed the temperature plummeting. The cold became unbearable. Hypothermia was setting in rapidly, worsening my condition every second. I tried everything, holding my torch, eating spicy plants, and even standing near a bonfire, all while avoiding the boss. But nothing worked. My body temperature kept dropping, and eventually, the cold overtook me. Once again, I went down by the deadly winter. Respawning back at my campsite, I realized the problem was the night temperatures. When the sun went out, it was deadly out there. Just by stepping out of my camp, I could feel it. Even with the torch, it wasn't enough to keep me warm. The only way to not lose heat was to stay near my site. I even tried using the fire of a Molotov to increase the heat. It worked for a bit, but right after, it still went down. So, I waited until the next morning. Determined to finish what I started, I returned to the fortress at sunrise. This time, I was more aware of the temperature meter beneath my minimap. I climbed back up to confront the vulture boss once more. The fight was long and grueling, but I prevailed. Unfortunately, Igna wasn't there. However, fluctuations in the stardust revealed a vision of him.
We'll crush the column camp and claim the entire region.
If the vultures are planning an assault, how about we try to scuttle their plans?
To sabotage their operations, I planted explosives near their supplies, carefully setting them in all the designated spots. Once everything was ready, I detonated them, leaving their plans in ruins. With my mission complete, I returned to Camp Igloo to report to Wendy. I told her that Igna wasn't there. With that done, I had 3 main quests to follow. One of them tasked me to talk with Dr. Ethel, who was looking for ways to fend off the threat of the plummeting temperatures. It was just what I needed. This was in a new region called Vana Fjord. It was a higher level zone, but more importantly, it's where I could find the Great One Trent. So, I hopped on my bike and began the journey. Along the way, I encountered some new wildlife I hadn't seen before. Their hides could be valuable. Different animals provided different bonuses against the cold. I harvested what I could and pressed forward. On the way, I stumbled upon an enormous tree, similar to one I saw some time ago on the horizon. Wooden platforms spiraled around its massive trunk, forming a path that led high above the ground. I climbed the structure, looking forward to see the view at the top. The tree was really tall, but the weather wasn't on my side. It was really foggy. I couldn't see much. Unfortunately, I found no way to reach the very top. Continuing the journey on my motorcycle, I noticed this region was full of player houses, far more than I had seen until now. They were pretty elaborate. After activating a teleportation tower, I kept driving. Along the way, I spotted a massive bridge running parallel to the one I was on. I even got out of my bike to appreciate it. The fog made it hard to see, but its sheer scale was impressive. As I ventured further, the snow began to thicken. This region was completely drenched with it. Then, a notification popped up. Something about a Chaos Weaver. That was one of the machines Anne had warned me about. They were made by the vultures, making the climate extremely cold in this area. I started to freeze to death. I hopped on my bike and got out of there, escaping the frostbite. Once I was safe, I paused to admire a vibrant rainbow that arced across the sky. It was a beautiful sight in such a harsh environment. Driving further along the road, I finally arrived at the Whalebone, a fitting name. The path leading to it was surrounded by huge bones, which could easily be the remains of enormous whales. Once there, I found Dr. Ethel. According to him, a team sent to retrieve fuel from Fisker Harbor had gone missing. It was suspected they had been attacked. My task was to investigate the place and find them. Touring around the town, I discovered an agricultural area where the settlers put up a small farm. I also checked out some houses, familiarizing myself with the settlement. Before moving on, I activated the teleportation tower for fast travel later. Just next to town, something strange caught my eye. At first, I thought it was a player, but as I got closer, I realized it was a deviation, a nutcracker. The place was bustling with player homes, tons of securement units. Afterward, I harvested a large number of spiked tomatoes and other plants. While attempting to relocate my campsite to this area, I was ambushed by a group of buffaloes. I took them down and collected their hides. Once the camp was set up, I bought plenty of water to stay hydrated. I ate some food and also moved my whole territory here, adding some stairs for a proper entrance. Next, I unlocked the leatherworking mimetic, enabling me to craft rawhide, which I realized could be used for both heat and burn protection. I also discovered that bear skin provided greater cold resistance compared to reindeer skin. At this point, I only had 10 points of cold resistance and 5 points of frost. Equipping the Snowland pants increased them to 15 and 10 respectively. I decided to focus on enhancing my cold resistance through food. I unlocked the mimetics for dishes 1, air drying, and dishes 2. Gaining access to a recipe for salty roasted spiked tomato. This dish provided a 10-point boost to cold resistance for 30 minutes. However, it spoiled after 24 hours, so I had to plan carefully. I also learned that increasing body fat could give me an additional 5 points in cold resistance. My current weight was 75 kilograms, and I needed to reach 85. I cooked and ate a lot of roasted meat, but it would take much more than that. Afterwards, I prepared several dishes to carry with me. Feeling more equipped, I set out to tackle the next main mission, in hopes to get stronger for the big battle against Trent. On the way, I encountered another floating anomaly, similar to the one I'd seen before, and I found myself facing hundreds of deviants, armed with a Gatling gun. I managed to clear them out and earn some rewards at the end. Pushing forward, I finally reached Fisker Harbor, a place trapped in a state of night. The atmosphere was unsettling. I dealt with a few deviants before finding the missing soldiers.
We were loading oil from the harbor when the power shorted out. All of a sudden, those things swarmed us. We've been calling them shadow deviants. By the time we figured out these shadows could be stopped by shining a strong enough light on them, it was too late.
To handle the shadow deviants, I needed to use a shock baton to activate the lights, as these creatures were immune to my attacks in darkness. I sprinted to the nearest power cell, activated it, and noticed the shadows couldn't approach me in the light. Reaching the control room, I successfully turned the power back on. With the lights activated, the shadow deviations were no longer invulnerable, and I took them down swiftly. On my way back to Korra, night fell, and the temperature dropped rapidly. I was on the verge of freezing, but managed to endure by eating one of the salty roasted spiked tomatoes I had prepared earlier.
You just saved our lives.
Before heading back to town, I explored further, activating the rift anchor and opening the mystical crate. I also found a tier 2 rated top in a gear crate and the weapon crate, completing this site. Finally, I returned to my base to sleep and restore my sanity, which had been limiting my maximum health. I went back to talk to Dr. Ethel. He thanked me for the job, but they had another issue to deal with.
We have a regularly scheduled convoy leaving for Bear's Den carrying valuable cargo. Our leader, Roland, is headquartered in Bear's Den. He's counting on those supplies and those reports.
The vultures threatened the supply route connecting Whalebone to the column headquarters located at Bear's Den in the snowy mountains.
We'd like you to lead the convoy.
It was crucial to ensure the safety of the transport caravan. I met with the captain.
Just follow the route and keep an eye out for any vultures.
My role was to scout ahead and eliminate any threats along the path. Driving to the rendezvous point, I encountered Veronica, the chief scientific officer of the column. Veronica told me that Roland, their most capable warrior, was missing, alongside their whole team. Before we could delve deeper, we were ambushed.
The vultures are attacking! It's an ambush!
Come on, let's go.
Hold their ground and cover right once we are all in their sights.
Once again, you've proved your worth to the column, Mayfly.
Veronica invited me to visit Bear's Den to take a look around. I hopped on my bike and began to climb up the mountain. As I ascended, the temperature plummeted and the blizzard rolled in. Hypothermia became a serious threat. I got off my bike to hold my torch and eat one of my dishes to boost my cold resistance. This allowed me to press onward, driving through the snow-covered terrain. It went on for a while, until I finally arrived at Bear's Den. The settlement was impressive, with snow falling all around. It was pretty picturesque. The first thing I did was activate the teleportation tower to secure fast travel to the area. Exploring further, I discovered an elevator leading to a Rosetta facility filled with military equipment and surveillance feeds. With that done, I wanted to go and see more of the snowy mountains. I set a waypoint. Riding my bike uphill was a challenge, but the view was stunning. I even spotted what appeared to be a volcano. On the way, I came across a group of cabins guarded by some scattered deviants. I cleared them out and loaded some supplies. Night began to fall as I climbed higher. I made it to the place. It was an abandoned outpost, eerily empty. No deviants and no soldiers, just silence. I activated the rift anchor. That was 2 out of 4 I needed to unlock the monolith to fight the Great One Trent. From there, I noticed a teleportation tower perched high on a cliff. I began making my way there. It was a struggle. I had to stop and eat to stay warm, but eventually reached the tower and activated it. The view was insane. The nearest location with the rift anchor required level 23. I was only 22, and I still hadn't upgraded my gear to higher tiers. I teleported back to my territory, activated another teleportation tower, and set out to tackle another rift anchor, which seemed easier to manage. As I arrived at the site, I encountered a new deviation I hadn't seen before. This one had a fan for a head, capable of throwing snowballs that froze me in place. Just when I thought I was gaining the upper hand, it started regenerating its health, becoming completely immune to damage. Realizing this, I made a run for it and activated the anchor. I glided away to my territory. I did some disassembling, smelted some ore into ingots, and also set up another securement unit to put a paper doll deviation in it. I crafted a tier 2 sniper rifle and calibrated it to improve its damage. While gathering some resources, my tool broke. I ended up building a better one, a copper pickaxe. I smelted a ton of bronze ingots and made a Curiosity Catcher 1 at the supplies workbench. It had the ability to pin the location of nearby tin and copper ores. With all of these bronze ingots, I finally calibrated my sniper rifle to the maximum level possible for the moment. Now, it was time to upgrade the armor. After reviewing my blueprints, the only available set was the heavy-duty clothing frag. I unlocked the top, pants, and helmet pieces. To craft their tier 2 versions, I needed more bronze ingots. After gathering the necessary materials, I crafted all 3 pieces and calibrated them as much as I could with what I had. After crafting a fresh batch of sniper rifle ammo, I felt ready to tackle the next rift anchor, located in the Highbury restricted area. Before leaving, I crafted a storage crate to offload some of my heavier materials and free up inventory space. Feeling ready, I headed off. The journey began smoothly, but as I approached the massive bridge, the cold became overwhelming. There was no way to resist. Even with the warmth from the food buff and my torch, it wasn't enough. I would have to craft some gear with better cold protection. But before doing that, I wanted to see if it was possible to just push through it. I drove as fast as I could, hoping to cross the blizzard in time. I made it across. The area was still brutally cold, but with the food buff and the torch, I managed to barely maintain my body temperature. The cold of the night was not helping. I wanted to activate that teleportation tower. That way, it would be easier to come back if I needed to. I changed momentarily to the Snowland outfit again, which had 5 bonus points to cold resistance. This way, I wouldn't need to constantly hold the torch to avoid dying. I tried to search for a shortcut up the mountain, but couldn't find any. There was no other way than to push through the blizzard. So I hopped on my bike and faced it head on. The cold was relentless as I drove higher. Hypothermia was setting in. I had to get off my bike and get some gravel and wood to build a camp to warm myself. I tried setting it up, but the terrain wasn't flat enough. Time was running out. Searching desperately for some suitable ground, I kept driving further until I finally made it. The campfire, alongside my torch, the food buff, and the gear was barely enough to endure this area, but the journey was far from over. The road was winding and indirect, forcing me to climb higher and higher. Hypothermia crept back in as I crossed a small bridge, forcing me to set up another camp to avoid freezing to death. Once warmed, I pressed forward for the final stretch. After crossing a tunnel, I missed the right turn and nearly entered an enemy base. Dodging incoming shots, I got back on track, passing a group of bears along the way. Their hides could be useful for crafting, and I finally reached the tower and activated it. After setting up the camp once more and warming myself up, I went to hunt down the bears for their hides. But when I got closer, I found out they were invulnerable. They didn't even react to me. Possibly they were deviations of another player. By now, the sun had risen, and the temperature improved slightly. The torch was enough to keep me warm, but the moment I switched to my gun, I began freezing again. Instead of going through the front entrance, I went all the way around the base with my motorcycle to arrive directly above the rift anchor.
Go no further. Stop. Please.
But on the way, I lost track of where I had to go, almost going off the boundaries of the map.
Go no further.
I think I lost the food buff I had, and that made it impossible to survive the cold, not even with the torch. I was already so close to the rift anchor. I tried gliding to it, but the cold overtook me once more. Respawning back at my territory, I realized that surviving in that area was nearly impossible with my current gear. I needed better hides to craft superior cold protection and more spike-made dishes to endure the harsh conditions. I decided to go to a different point of interest to activate another rift anchor located at Wishland Eastern Park. After cooking some food at the stove, I teleported to the last tower I had activated, gliding down to the road as a shortcut. The challenges continued. The temperature was super low, and I ran out of fuel in the middle of a bridge. I quickly refueled the bike with the small reserve I had, barely managing to push through the cold and exiting the blizzard. After more driving, I finally arrived at Wishland, a massive amusement park. The rift anchor was on the upper level, requiring some parkour along the roller coaster rails to reach it. I managed to climb up and activate it. To my surprise, this anchor was for a different monolith, not the one I needed. The correct one was located in the west section of the park. Before heading there, I explored the area to find some crates. Along the way, I ventured into the zoo section and stumbled upon a group of corrupted bears. I took them all down from a safe spot and collected their hides. I could use them to make better gear against the cold. After opening a weapon crate, I found the flamingo section, where I also got their feathers, and another gear crate. Afterwards, I encountered a massive mutant claw machine. From a safe distance, I began sniping at it, but my shots barely left a mark. It threw some teddy bears and projectiles my way. I almost died by a single teddy bear. Nonetheless, I managed to bring the mutant down and claimed its loot. With this done, I teleported to a tower that was closer to the next anchor and made my way to it, avoiding another of the huge mutants and activating the machine. Now, the monolith was unlocked and I was able to fight the Great One Trent. But I wondered, was I ready? I made the top and bottom parts of the Snowland set, and after equipping it, I made some steel sniper ammo. The steel bullets did almost 100 points more of damage, not bad. I crafted a few adrenaline shots to ensure I could recover if downed in combat. With my preparations complete, I teleported to the nearest tower and rode my bike to the avalanche monolith. I tried sneaking past the guards, but I was spotted. It all got out of control. I rushed in to activate the teleportation tower, but found myself cornered by the whole base. They threw grenades at me, sent drones, everything. It was a desperate fight, but in the end, I took them all out. Switching to the heavy-duty armor set, I entered the building. There it was, the Rift Beacon. The fight suggested being level 30 and going in duo. I was only level 24 and solo. I was in for a challenge. This would not be an easy fight. Despite my best efforts, I had to accept defeat and retreat. Seeing Trent up close was a harrowing experience. It was more than just a foe, it was a living nightmare, a testament to the devastating effects of Stardust mutations. This was a fight I couldn't win, but maybe you will be able to. Download Once Human for free through my link down below and survive this brutal post-apocalyptic world yourself. There's PvP and PvE servers, so you're free to play as you prefer. It doesn't matter if you're a new player or if you're considering returning, join now and you will receive a maximum of 87,000 star crumbs for free this December to enjoy 174 free draws. So download the game for free using my link below and try to survive the Way of Winter. Remember that there are massive new scenarios coming up. Not only that, but the mobile version will launch in April 2025 and it will replicate the high-quality gameplay of the PC version. Open world survival mobile games march into a new era of no pay to win. So pre-register now and join their Discord, all links down in the description.